back to the Beehive, everybody. Today we want to bring back Speedway, bring it back to the USA. We're going to do that right now. There was a writer at one time back in the 50s. He did a lot of practicing and writing. His name was Dude Griswold. There was only one problem. There was no Speedway tracks for a dude to ride on. So he decided to go ahead and promote the Speedway at the Whiteman Stadium. He brought back Speedway in 1968. I do not know much about Dude. I've seen only a couple of pictures of him. There's not really much written about him. It'd be nice if we could find out more about Dude Griswold. A few of the writers, though, they called him a shady businessman. Why? Because he was a shady businessman. Dude found a track at the Whiteman Airport. It was a little private airport. Dude went ahead and they raced cars in there. They had a big round concrete track. And Dude said we could make a speedway track, a smaller speedway track, in the middle of that concrete track, and he did. Went ahead and made the Whiteman Stadium Speedway track. But there was one problem. There was no speedway riders. Dude needed some riders. He couldn't just go out there and win every race and be alone. He needed some riders, and he was thinking, where are we going to find some riders? Oh, Ascot and all these other flat track races. He went to Ascot, and he went to El Toro, and went to all these different meets, and he recruited these flat track riders, and he figured they would be pretty good at riding Speedway, and he was right. The notable big names that he recruited, one of them was the Rocket Rick Woods. He was the first United States Speedway champion at the Whiteman Stadium. Rick the Rocket Woods. Another pretty good rider at that time was Sliding Sonny Nutter, number 19. He was a good rider, and he was a flat tracker. He was hauling ass. This guy was good. He became the first California state champion in 1968, I believe. And he became the leader, the captain, when the United States traveled and raced in Europe and all over Jerusalem, Israel, Africa. Sliding Sonny Nutter was there as the captain. Another noteworthy rider that Dude recruited from Ascot was Sammy the Flea Tanner. He was good. Number 7. I like that number. I had another 7 and we got it. Sammy Tanner was just a fantastic rider. He won over 400 races at Ascot. He was considered one of the greatest riders in Ascot's history. And Dude Griswold got him to ride Speedway. There were some really good riders who really didn't get into Speedway after the 68 season. Ed Mulder was one of the riders. He was winning a lot of races. He was really good, but he really didn't get into Speedway after the revival in 1968. There was Steve Scott. He was an early point leader. He also didn't get into Speedway too much after the revival in 68, but Steve Scott was a good rider. And there was the brother combination of Bruce and Greg Hazerat. They were good riders. They were brothers. I know both of them. I knew Bruce from Speedway, his daughter Venus, and Greg. He's been on the show. We know Greg. He was a great rider, tough guy, hardcore racer. Both of them, the Hazarats, were very good. And another pretty good brother combination was the Bass brothers, Steve and Mike Bass. A couple of the greatest Speedway riders of all time. in American history, that is. These guys were good. The Bass brothers, They were young, they were fresh, they were starting off. They weren't really that good at the beginning, but they picked it up and they became famous in the 70s. I believe Wild Bill Cody joined them at the very end. There were so many good riders. There's so many great flat trackers. Some of those guys went back to flat track. Some of them went to Speedway. But when the Speedway at the Whiteman Stadium started, Jerry Fairchild, he brought a bunch of 1930s and 1940s JAP Speedway bikes. He brought them in his big old truck. A bunch of them. I saw those bikes at his shop. He had them too. And he brought them for all the riders to ride. So when you see the old pictures, they were riding those old 1940s, 30s JAP. They're all from Jerry Fairchild, and that started the whole thing. But gradually, the Speedway riders didn't like those old 1930s bikes, and they decided to go ahead and start investing into their own Speedway bikes. Thus, the old 30s and 40s bikes were gone, and the riders were getting brand new Jawas. When we had Greg Hazarat on the show, he told us about his 1968 1969 new Jawa, and it was beautiful. It came from Czechoslovakia, came with all these parts. There was sprockets, there was a whole stack full of parts, and it was literally hundreds of dollars worth of parts. They were really nice back in the old days. But now, no more. They don't give you, you get a bike and that's it. But back in the old days, you got a whole truckload of parts with your Jawa Speedway bike. I must admit, I really like the old riding styles of the 68, that funky leg-kicking riding style. They looked really cool, they were wild. But then, it changed. Ivan and Barry came to America, and they literally transformed American Speedway. They taught the riders how to ride. The riders really didn't believe that they could go any faster, but Ivan Major, he got on that old JP, and he set track records. What I think is really cool about the sport of Speedway, it's not about the motorcycle, it's about the riders. Back in '68, a whole crop of new riders came on. They were literally nobodies, and by the end of the whole thing, they become superstars and famous, like Wild Bill Cody and the Bass Brothers, Rick Woods. They all became legends, but at first, they were just flat trackers, just trying to figure out what Speedway was all about. They probably rode just for the money because they probably didn't even know what Speedway was. Speedway started off as this quirky kind of thing. People probably, like I say, rode for the money. Then it changed. It became big time once it moved to Costa Mesa in Orange County. They had the people, they had the fans, the money was pouring in, and they had the glory days of Speedway. That shady dude named Dude Criswell, he brought Speedway back to America. We really want to thank Dude for that. He brought Speedway back. We're all here enjoying the sport because of Dude Criswell. And then Harry Oxley and Jack Milne, they saw this sport of Speedway and they said, that might go good in OC. And they went ahead and got the rights to the Orange County Fairgrounds. They brought Speedway in the summer of '69. Yeah, they brought the summers. They had Speedway at the Costa Mesa Bull Ring, and it became famous. Costa Mesa is the granddaddy of all the Speedway tracks in California and the United States. The Rocket Rick Woods, he was the first United States Speedway champion at the Whiteman Stadium. And then the following year you had Steve Bass. He was the first Speedway champion at the Costa Mesa Bull Ring. And Rick Woods, he won a couple at Costa Mesa. And it was just great. You had the Woods and the Bass Brothers. That was just amazing. Some love him, some hate him. But Dude Criswell will always go down in history as the promoter that brought Speedway back to America. They said he was the shady dude, but he brought the sport of Speedway back.